Hey guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you'll enjoy the Girl Dad Discussion podcast. I'm your host, Ernest James, and I believe the relationship between a daughter and her father is one of the most important relationships a young lady can have. And therefore, my mission is to promote the daddy-daughter relationship by sharing the voices of girl dads to the world. So check out our podcast on every platform where podcasts can be listened to. And if you want to watch the podcast, check us out on our YouTube channel. Again, that's the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with your host, Ernest James. Are you looking for inspiration on a daily basis? Well, check out Deal to Heal Tees. With our inspirational tees, you're sure to find something that will inspire you. Just go to dealtohealtees.myshopify.com. That's Deal to Heal Tees. Get some inspiration in your situation. Wear inspirational tea and be inspired all day. That's Deal to Heal Tees at dealtohealtees.myshopify.com. Hey guys, this is Ernest James, host of the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, and I got a question to ask you. Could you buy me a cheeseburger? Better yet, could you buy me a value meal? Yes? Well, guess what? I don't need a value meal. However, for the cost of a value meal, you can support this podcast to keep us on the air. Just go to Patreon/Deal to Heal podcast and choose any one of the 3 tiers that's available. And if you just want to make a one-time donation, go to Cash App and make a donation to $EJames, the number 418. Make a one-time donation to the Cash App, or again, go to Patreon to support this podcast and keep us on the air. Thanks in advance. Be blessed. Welcome to Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. Welcome to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I am your host, Ernest James, and I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, to heal, and to fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. If you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel and to our podcast on all of your listening platforms. So thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I am talking too fast. About to mess up my intro. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Also, make sure you guys are checking out our partner podcast, which is the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with E. James, which is myself. We also share a YouTube channel. So when you log in and you subscribe to the Deal to Heal with E. James channel, podcast channel, when you look on there under the podcast tab, you will see the link for the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. Also, make sure that you're following the Girl Dad Discussions podcast on all of your social media outlets and your podcast listening outlet also, because we want to make sure that you guys, check that out, right? So on that podcast, we talk to dads and daughters about the father-daughter relationship and how to build it, and we add value in that space. So make sure that you're checking out our partner podcast, the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with E. James, and also that you are subscribing, again, to our YouTube channel and to our podcast on all your podcast listening platforms. Also, I'm going to tell you guys how you can win $100 from the podcast, but you have to stay into the end of the episode to find out that information. But you can win $100 from the podcast. So stay tuned and we'll get to that later on in the show. So for our next segment is our product of the week. As you guys know, we are a self-sustained podcast, and the way that we stay on the air to be able to bring you the things that we bring you, the good guests and information, is by also providing you with positive and uplifting and inspirational products for you to purchase for yourself. So our product of the week this week is one of my ebooks, and this one is called Forgiving Me, the 4-Step Guide to Self-Forgiveness. Again, that's Forgiving Me, the 4-Step Guide to Self-Forgiveness. As we know, forgiveness is a big thing in this world that we all need to know how to apply it to our lives, to ourselves. And a lot of times we hold grudges against ourselves for some of the decisions that we made in our past. So this ebook is going to help you with 4 steps to help you get through forgiving yourself for some of the things that you've made, mistakes maybe that you've made in the past, decisions you've made in the past, and how to get over those and how to forgive yourself and move forward. So again, that's our product of the week. It is our ebook, Forgiving Me, the 4 Steps to Self-Forgiveness. You can find that at our website, dealhealfulfill.org. Our website, again, dealhealfulfill.org. And when you go there, you can also find our inspirational teas and also our other ebooks that we have available. So make sure that you guys are going to check that out. So usually this is where I say today, just like any other day, we are blessed with a guest, but today we are not blessed with a guest. Today I am solo, right? I'm solo. This is going to be a solo episode. And I want to give a shout out to the mailroom messages from him and Trinette and the family over there, who recently I was able to be a guest on their podcast, or on, should I say, on their radio show. And one of the things we talked about was how to create a safe space. So make sure you guys go and check them out on the mailroom messages from him that can also be found at iamtrinettecollier.com. iamtrinettecollier.com. And I had the privilege of being on that show. So make sure you guys go check that episode out on YouTube and on their radio show. So that being said, recently, again, I had the chance to be on that show. And one of the things we talked about was how to create a safe space for your man, right? And this is for talking about relationship wise. Just talking to women, we had a couple of young ladies that joined us on the panel. I was one of the guys on the panel. We had 3 guys and 3 young ladies on the panel. And we talked about what does it mean for men, or what we find as a safe space. What does it mean to create a safe space for us? So we are able to give our output on what is a safe space and what does that look like from the man's point of view. And the women, the young ladies that was on the show with us, gave their ideas a little input, but they actually had the chance to listen and hear the hearts of from 3 mature men talking about what a safe space looked like in a relationship. And so I wanted to bring that here because we talked about it, and we actually had almost 10 things that create this safe space, right? And it was it actually turned out very great, very good episode. And so I wanted to bring those things here to talk about it a little bit on my show, on the podcast, because I think it was so informative. Actually, someone actually called me and told me, hey, you need to bring that to your podcast. And so I said, well, I had the idea to do it anyway, but now I'm definitely going to do it since someone asked for it. So I know that it's valuable. But it definitely was a very entertaining conversation, should I say the least, and informative at the same time. And so when we talked about creating a safe space, we were talking about creating a safe space for your man, or the man that you're in a relationship with, and just so that there is no misunderstanding, because a lot of times we have our ideas of what a safe space is, our ideas of how we want the relationship to go or how the relationship should go. And we don't necessarily take out the time to talk to our mates and the people who we are in the relationship with to actually get their viewpoint on what it looks like to them. Because I always say, to have a successful relationship, your focus should be on your mate, right? And their focus should be on you. So if my focus is making sure that you have your needs met in this relationship, and your focus is to make sure I have my needs met in the relationship, then we both will have our needs met, and can actually have a good relationship. And so I was glad to be on this podcast and on this panel, should I say, because it gave men a chance to actually speak to women and let them know, okay, this is what we find, what a safe space looks like to us, right? And so I'm gonna get started with some of the things that we came up with. And so, starting from the very first one, when it comes to how to build a safe space for your man, the number one rule, the first rule that we had was encourage him to find his core beliefs and where he finds peace, right? So what I mean by that is encourage him to look within himself first, because one of the things that I wanted to make sure that we all understood, that every journey that we starts with us first. So before young lady can even begin to start to build a safe space for her man has to know what that looks like for himself, and he has to begin to build a safe space for himself, within himself, before he can ask anyone else to add to it. And so to begin to even start building a safe space, I encourage young ladies to encourage their man to figure out what is his core beliefs and where does he find peace within himself. Now, mind you, this is something he has to do on his own. You cannot do this for him, right? He has to take this journey on his own. And just for example, Jamal King, otherwise known as the 9 to 5 millionaire, if you don't know who he is, you can look him up. But he has what he calls his 5 pillars, right? His 5 pillars that make up the way that he runs his life, like his core beliefs. And his 5 pillars are faith, family, finances, fitness, and freedom, right? And I really like those 5 core beliefs, and I actually, incorporate a version of that into my own life. But that's just to give an idea of what your man should be looking for. Like, what is your core values within yourself? Not having to do with anyone else, but what is the core values that I stand on, that I live by, that I believe is important to me? And he has to find those core values on his own. So that's the first thing I would say. I would encourage him to find out and to go within himself and figure out, what is my core values? What are the things that I stand on, that I build my life on, and everything else kind of rotates around those core beliefs. And so that's the first thing for him to find that. The second thing is, once he has figured out what his core beliefs are, and then your job is to make sure that he is making steps on his own to invest himself in those core areas, right? So again, this is something that you cannot do for him. You are to help him. So even on this journey, if we think of a baby, when a baby goes to walk, we help the baby walk by holding his hand as he takes the steps, but we can't take the steps for the baby. The baby actually has to walk on his own. So it's still that same kind of situation with, men at this stage of building a safe space, is that once they figure out what their core values are, then they have to, on their own, start taking the steps to invest in themselves in those core values. So if you say your core value is faith, what are you doing to take steps in that direction? Are you going to church, or are you going to mass, or are you reading your Bible, or whatever, literature that you believe in around that core value, whatever that core value is? If it's finances, are you taking financial literacy classes? Are you learning to budget your bank book and all of those things? What are you actually doing in the areas of the core values that you said you believe in? And so once your man once you begin to see that your man is actually taking steps in those values that he said that he believed in, then we can go to number 3. Now, this is where you come in where you can take interest in the core values and the core beliefs that he has and support him in those areas. So again, if we talk about faith, if he said that one of his core values is faith, what does that look like to support him in that? Are you reading your Bibles together if you're Christians? Are we going to church together? What ways can you join in with him in the steps that he's already taken in those core values? If finances is one of his core values, how can you now join in him with those to be with him in that core value? Right? How can you, okay, let's go take some financial literacy classes together. Let's take some business classes together. Let's learn about some investments together. Right? So this is where you're joining in again with him. If it's fitness, let's work out together. We can go some walks together, hold hands and walk if that's, or just working out at home, do some sit-ups, push-ups, whatever it is. Just this is where, and this the third one, this is where you come in and actually begin. Now you are infusing yourself into whatever those things are of his core value to help create that safe space for him. Okay, we'll call these principles. Principle number 4. Principle number 4 is kind of important. So in principle number 4, I want you to encourage him to think back into his past to make sure that there is nothing from his past that he's bringing into his future or to his present that may be harming his present and also his future. Right. And so that takes some vulnerability on his part. That takes some definitely building of trust on both sides for him to be able to open up and have that conversation with you after he's taken that conversation or that mental journey himself to go back into his mind and look and see, man, what are some things that I may be carrying from childhood that I'm still carrying now, that I'm bringing into something that may have happened in a relationship years ago that I'm still bringing into this relationship, and it is affecting me here. And not only do I see where it's affecting me here, but I also see where it can affect me in the past. And so one of the members that was on the panel, Mr. Takeover, actually gave us a great illustration for this thought. And he said, your past is the present that shapes your future. Something like that. I'm sorry if I said it wrong. I'll make sure I get it right. But I think it was something to that effect. It was like your present your past is the present that creates your future. So whatever you're doing today will soon be your past. But what you do today would also be creating something that's ahead in your future. And so that's why we have to go back to make sure whatever we did in our past is not negatively affecting us here in the present, which also becomes our future, right? So definitely want to make sure that you're encouraging him to go back, take a journey within himself, take a journey within his mind into his memory and think back on his childhood, think back on past relationships, think back even on how he was raised and the things that he believed back then, to make sure that none of those things are being transferred or still being carried into his present. And if they are, let's deal with them now so we don't continue to take them into his future, right? So the fifth principle is patience. And patience is a must, because you must be patient with him as long as he's making progress, but not holding on to potential. So a lot of times in relationships, our young ladies, we hold on to men because they have potential, and we know they have the potential to do this, and they have the potential to become this or become that, and they hold on to potential. I don't want you to do that, right? Because you'll be holding on forever. But when you're I want you to hold on to be patient with him as long as he's steady making steps and progress in the areas that he needs to be making progress in. Again, we talked about the core values and what are those core values? Is he actually making steps to continually invest in himself in those areas? And as long as he's making progress and he's making steps in those areas, then you must be patient with him, because it may take a while for the changes to come. It may take a while for him to figure out, the things that he needs to do. But as long as he's making those steps, even if they're baby steps, as long as he's making those steps in the right direction to heal and to deal with the things from his past, as he make those steps, and depending on those core values and building on those core values, then yes, let's take out time to be patient with him, that we can walk along with him as he's doing that. Number 6, the sixth value that we came up with was, you don't have to be right all the time, right? And I gave the the question, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And this goes for both ways. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? You don't have to be right all the time, whatever the situation is, right? And the both of you may have a disagreement, and just because you don't agree on something doesn't mean that it's necessary to battle over who's right or who's wrong, because some things are just trivial and it doesn't matter who's right or who's wrong, as long as you both can come to an agreement that even if it's that you agree to disagree, right? You don't have to be right all the time. And if you do have to be right all the time in order for you to be happy, because again, my question was, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And if you have to be right all the time in order for you to be happy, then I think that's something that you should be looking into for yourself, because I would say that there's maybe some self-esteem issues or something like that that making you feel like you have to be right in all times in order for things to go your way, and if not, you're upset about it. So you don't have to be right all the time, especially, again, we're talking about building a safe space. A safe space means that, okay, it's okay for us to disagree, but just because we don't agree, we can agree to disagree, and it doesn't have to turn into a fight or an argument, to keep the peace, literal peace, in our spaces. Number 7 is, learn how he wants to be loved and not how you want to love him. Again, this goes back to what I mentioned earlier about us having these preconceived notions of what our relationship should look like, what I should be giving, what should he be receiving, what he should be giving back, right? Or she, however whoever it is that's in the relationship, because these principles actually can go both ways. Or this was us talking about a safe space for men, but I think it's also just principles that can go back either way to building a safe space for the ladies in our lives also. So when we talk about learn how he wants to be loved or they want to be loved, not how you want to love them. And I mentioned about the book, The 5 Love Languages, which I don't get paid to to promote it, but I think it's a very awesome book. I think it gives you a great blueprint of where to start, by reading that book and taking a little quiz at the end to figure out what are your love languages and what's important to you. Me, myself, I know my top ones is quality time and physical touch is my love languages, which means it's more important to me to spend time with you than it is for you to buy me a gift. I'm not impressed by gifts. Material things is not really important to me. I would rather have your time than to have your money, right? And physical touch is very important to me. I would rather us hold hands, and then for, to go on a trip or something like that. Those are the two things that's important to me. So you have to learn what's important to your mate. What's important? How do they want to be loved? What does love look like to them when it's being received? And so that you are giving them what they want and not what you think they want or think they should want, right? And last but not least, number 8, our number 8th one was watch the body languages, right? Watch the person's body language, because especially dealing with men, we are not always very open, right? When it comes to expressing ourselves, we're not always very open. Like, hey, let me tell you what's going on. It's a something that we all should be working on, to be more vocal about how we feel about things, how we think about things. But a lot of times we're not. And so when we're not, we have to have that patience. You need that patience, but you also need to pay attention to the body language, right? If he comes in the house with his head hung down, maybe he's feeling low. He might not never say it, but you can tell if he comes in like really tired, and as soon as he walks in the door, he dropping everything on the floor right where he's at, right, and flopping down in the chair. Maybe he's tired, maybe he needs rubbed his back or something, or maybe he just needs a hug. A lot of times we just need, again, myself, physical touch is is one of my love languages. And so to walk in the house and say, hey, let me just give you a hug, a nice, meaningful hug, I think that plays a part, to help with how I'm feeling, definitely, but how he may be feeling. But just paying attention to the body language, paying attention when things begin to shift, when he usually come in the house upbeat and happy, and then one day he comes in and he's not upbeat, but he's like tired and beaten down. Being able to watch that body language shift, be able to see when those things change. All of these things, again, this was part of the list that we came up with when I was a guest on the mail room, messages from him not too long ago. And these were the things that we came up with from the men, talking to the men on the panel, talking to the ladies on the panel, to give them, just a brief overview of what we believe needs to be necessary when we're creating a safe space for men, right? In our relationships, in our homes, even in our romantic relationships, to make sure that we are providing a safe space. And so these are just some of the things. I think if we had went longer, we would have had even more, right? Because we had eight things that we talked about. And I think, again, go to the mailroom messages from him. You definitely can find them on YouTube. Also, I've been on their radio show 3 times, and I always say I'm the Michael Jordan of the show, because I've been on there 3 times. I don't know if anyone else of their past visitors or guests have been on the show 3 times, but I have been on there myself, and I'm a big supporter of the mailroom messages from him. And you can find them also at IamTrinetCollier.com. IamTrinetCollier.com. I'll make sure that I have that somewhere in the show notes. So again, that was just a brief going over those principles to building a safe space for your man. And I think they're very important. And I also, again, like I said, I think it goes both ways. I think when it comes to building a safe space for the woman in your life, also those principles can still be used going 2 ways. So again, man, I just wanted to highlight you guys and drop that. I thought that was very cool when we did that whole thing. And like I said, someone called me and said, hey, I think you should have that. You should talk about those principles on your show. And so I said, okay, cool, I will. And so I did. And so I did. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you guys got something out of it. Make sure you also guys go and check out that actual episode. I think that's very cool. I think it was very entertaining and enlightening at the same time. And it was very good to be on there. So make sure also that you guys are checking out our websites. If you go to the dealhealfulfill.org, dealhealfulfill.org, that is our overall website for everything that I have going on, to be able to find out information about me, about the podcast, both podcasts, the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, as well as the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. Also, you'll find the links to our inspirational teas, Deal to Heal teas, where our inspirational teas are, and also the link for our ebooks that's there. Or when you're talking about, want to look up the ebook, just go to ebooksbyejames.com, ebooksbyejames.com, where you can find the link, where you can find, that will be the website, that is the website where you can find our ebooks that I have available right now. Always writing and creating new ebooks, should be on the way, but right now there's 4 that are there. We have the Core 4, which is the core 4 values that every daughter should be getting from her father. That ebook is there. We have From Males to Men, the 3 steps to manhood. That one is there, as well as our product of today, which was Forgiving Me, the 4-step guide to self-forgiveness. That ebook is there. And my newest ebook, which is called Start Your Podcast Now in Only 3 Simple Steps. So if you're listening to this podcast, I'm sure you listen to other podcasts, and you may have thought to yourself, you know what? I think I can do that. I think I wouldn't mind having my own podcast. Go to ebooksbyejames.com and get the ebook entitled Start Your Podcast Now in Only 3 Steps. In only 3 simple steps, I break it down for you where you can have your podcast up and running and recording today. So make sure you guys are checking that out. Also, I have the opportunity and pleasure to be a part of a company or organization called the Forgiveness Mission. And one of the things that we do, we hold free virtual workshops every quarter of the year. And so you can go to Eventbrite to register for that, or you can go to forgivenessmission.com to register for our free virtual workshops where we talk about forgiveness, what it is, what is not, what it means to forgive, who is for. We also talk about forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others, and forgiveness of the world. And we study building and adding things on in the area of forgiveness because we believe it is something that's very important to us all in this world today and make things go a lot better for us in the way of love and forgiveness if we could learn to truly forgive, right? And what it means to forgive. So make sure you guys are checking that out. Again, that's the forgivenessmission.com, and we hold free virtual workshops every quarter of the year. So whenever you're listening to this, either one just passed or one is coming up. So you can go to forgivenessmission.com in order to register for the next virtual workshop. So I told you guys at the beginning of the podcast that I would tell you how you can win $100 from the podcast. And you can win $100 from the podcast by joining our super subscriber contest. What must you do? You must subscribe to our YouTube page, our YouTube channel, should I say, to our Facebook page, and to our podcast on Spotify. And then text the word WIN, WIN, to the number 866-326 0730. That's text the word WIN, WIN, to the number 866-326-0730 to qualify to win $100. The contest is ongoing, and once you're in, you can always win. You don't never have to go re-up or anything like that. Once you get your name in and you text us or we have your information, then you can always win. Again, the contest is random. At any time, I can put a name and you could be our next $100 winner. Again, let me just say to all the listeners, thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. And I'm gonna leave you with a word that I got from the when I was on the Mailroom podcast radio show. It is a podcast or radio show. I know it's a radio show, right? When I was on the Mailroom, messages from him, there was a young lady that was also on there. I think her name is Mel Adwell. I think is her name. But she said this quote, and I'm going to leave you guys with this. She said, "Make today so amazing that tomorrow is jealous." And so I want to leave that with you guys also. Make today so amazing that tomorrow is jealous. All right. And we can't end it no better than that. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. And I'm your host, Ernest James. And I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And so our mission is to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Until next time, you guys be blessed. Hey guys, I know you're enjoying the podcast. However, don't forget to join our text line at 866-326-0730. That's 866-326-0730 in order to receive text messages with new events and things that is going on and new episodes as they release. All right, see you in a minute. Thanks for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. This episode has been brought to you by Deal to Heal Teas. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Remember, our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for listening.